And welcome back to the Capitol Report. I'm Steve Lance. Former Vice President Kamala Harris will not be running for California governor. What does the future hold for her career in politics? Joining us now live are Democratic strategist Josh Lafazan and Project 21 Ambassador Melanie Collette. It's great to have you both with us. Melanie, let's start with you right off the bat. What is your reaction to Kamala Harris's decision?
I'm surprised, and I think it's the first really good political decision that she's made in some time. I think that the writing was on the wall that this probably wasn't even going to be a successful primary on her part, let alone winning the governorship. From what I understand from the other side, wallets are closed, donors are kind of shutting down and saying this is not the person that we want to be the candidate for governor. It was not the easy lift that I think she thought it was going to be. So I think it's a good decision on her part.
Josh, as a Democrat, what's your reaction to the former vice president opting out to run for governor in the Golden State? And who do you think might be in the running without her in the picture?
Yeah, it's funny. Thanks for having me, Stephen. I agree with Melanie in that I'm surprised, but I disagree in that I thought it was the wrong political decision. Kamala Harris, in my opinion, should have ran for governor. This would have been a cakewalk. She's at 72% in terms of approval. Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 in that state. She's got universal name recognition. She's got a fundraising base that was ready to support her. And now you're putting all your eggs in your basket in 2028. And even though she might be a formidable candidate in 28, because Democrats statistically blame Joe Biden for the election loss and not Kamala Harris, there is a question of if she loses in 2028, is that the end of her political career. So I thought this was a mistake. I thought the California governor's mansion would have been a great perch to both attack Trump politically, but also to have a position of authority maybe for the next 12 years. Steve, if Kamala Harris is out, you're going to see Democrats come out of the woodwork. I've heard 12 names of people who were sitting on the sidelines and waiting. This is the single biggest piece of political news in California, maybe since Richard Nixon ran for governor after he lost the presidency back in the day.
Josh, I've never seen anybody spin so fast in my life. Good. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask Josh. Why couldn't she do both? She'd garner up a lot of name recognition in the process and a bit of a war chest.
She could do both. So logistically, she could. There was a prevailing wisdom amongst her advisors that if she ran for governor in 2026 and then ran for president, it would look opportunistic in that she would take office January 2027 and then have to start campaigning. The Iowa caucuses would be in 11 months. So logistically, she could do both. But I thought the move was for Kamala to run for governor. She's very popular amongst Democrats. She's got a 72% approval rating in California. That's like Elvis Presley level, right? And so not running for governor clearly indicates you're going to run for president. So, Steve, it's a long way away. Even though statistically Democrats blame Joe Biden and not Kamala Harris for her election loss in 2024, will there be appetite for a Kamala Harris rematch in 2028? And I don't know, with potential candidates like Andy Beshear and Josh Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, her classmate and colleague from California, I don't know if it's a walk in the park like maybe her folks think it is.
Collette, do you think that part of the rationale could be that the former vice president sees, the title of governor as a potential downgrade to her hopes of being president? And is there some sort of psychological drawback to it?
Oh, I think there's definitely a psychological drawback to something like that. I'm just wondering if any of the Democrats who were polled, 72%, saying that she's popular and thinks that it was Joe Biden's fault that the presidential election was lost, were they there the last election cycle? Did they see what went on? Did they see that the Democrats have the lowest approval rating in like 30 years? And she is not solely responsible for that, but certainly partially responsible for that. And if Democrats really think that about Kamala Harris, just like they are on the wrong side of every 2080 policy issue throughout the United States, they would be equally as wrong here about Kamala Harris and her chances of being governor, and certainly her chances of being president of the United States.
I want to just switch gears a bit here and talk about the economy. Some very good news for the Trump administration coming out. However, the Federal Reserve once again deciding to keep interest rates steady despite a lot of noise coming from the president on lowering them. Notably, for the first time in 3 decades, we've seen a bit of a split decision with two central bank governors dissenting. Josh, what do you think is holding the Fed back from cutting rates?
Sure. So first, in terms of the Fed's decision not to cut rates, I think sanity is prevailing here politically, right? Trump was pressuring Jerome Powell to lower interest rates, and I think it's a terrible precedent when the president of the United States is using the bully pulpit to force an independent appointee to make an economic decision. So Jerome Powell is worried about inflation, as am I, right? The consumer price index shows that inflation in the U.S. rose to 2.7% in June. That's the highest level since February. And Jerome Powell is concerned, as I am, that lowering inflation rates right now would skyrocket inflation. But I think the bigger story is the fact that Trump said he was going to fire Jerome Powell. Constitutionally, as upheld by the Supreme Court, the president cannot fire the Fed chair. Then Trump forgot that he appointed Jerome Powell. He said, I can't believe this guy got appointed. He appointed him back in his first term. Most importantly, I think what's prevailing here, the independent Fed that's making decisions based on economic data and not politics, that is better for consumers in the long run. I know it's frustrating for Trump because politically it's advantageous. If rates get lowered, people can buy homes and cars and whatnot, but inflation is still sticky. President Trump ran on a platform of lowering inflation. It's still here. And so I think being careful and not trying to explode inflation back up as consumers are now going to get hit with these tariff increases, I actually think it was the responsible thing to do.
As a CEO, you're not going to get all hires right. I'm sure Trump would love to have that pick back. With that said, Melanie, do you foresee Jerome Powell to be replaced as the Federal Reserve Chair before his term is up?
I don't think he's going to do that for the very reason that my fellow panelists said, because it looks like he's being a big bully. Not that President Trump has ever cared about that, but I think that the fight going to court is not worth it and would be a distraction. And I think that President Trump has calculated the costs, so to speak, and decided it would just be better to leave him there and kind of torture him. You've heard of quiet quitting. I feel like this is quiet firing that President Trump is doing with Powell. So fine, you want to stay here, your life is going to be miserable for the entire rest of your tenure. But I don't agree that this is an economic decision. And the bully pulpit is called a bully pulpit because, like, that's the privilege of having the bully pulpit. Let's not act like President Trump, is singular in that regard. But I really think this is a power struggle between Powell and President Trump. And, I hate the way specifically the left, when it comes to policy, talks about the political advantages as if the American people are left out of it. Yes, it would be good for President Trump politically, but more importantly, it would be good for the American people. Right now, people cannot buy houses because the interest rates are hovering around 7%. That is, it's very, very expensive, and a rate cut would help all of that out. It would help the American people. So everything's not about politics. Sometimes there are elected officials that actually care about the people.
We do have to leave it there. Melanie, Collette, Josh Lafasan, really appreciate both of you. Thank you.